What's up guys and welcome back to Tech Plant. Today I'm going to show you some uncommon terrarium plants. Let's check it out. Alright, so let's dig into this bin and let me show you some really cool terrarium plants. A quick side story though as we go is I originally only ordered one plant from this really kind woman on a Facebook group, and she is an absolute saint, and she sent me 6 other additional plants that I didn't even ask for as a surprise. These are the kind of people we need in the plant community because they just make it tremendously better. She's got an amazing collection and she's just a really awesome person. So here's her Instagram. I really suggest you guys give her a follow just because she has a lot of cool stuff. Okay, now back to the bin, and I'll just kind of walk you through the different species that she sent me, and then I'll show you them a few months later as they've kind of grown out and my plans for them in the future. This one is called the Ficus villosa, and this one is kind of like a shingle plant, but look at the crazy hairs on this thing. It is absolutely stunning and just a wild looking plant. I couldn't believe like the little bristles on there and just how much they really stand out and how much you can really feel them. It's a really awesome plant and I was really happy she sent it. This next one is called Solanum ecuador, and it is another kind of vining plant. Although this one doesn't really shingle, it does kind of grow everywhere and it can really start climbing fast. I really love the little pattern on these things. They look really beautiful with that like light colored vining that's running through them, and they just look awesome as they spread across the sphagnum moss. This next really tiny one is a small cutting of Margravia elcoca. This one actually is worth quite a bit after looking it up, and I'm really thankful and surprised that she sent this one as a freebie. It's a really nice plant, and as it gets bigger, it's going to look really beautiful. This next one is called Cissus amazonica, and this is another really cool one. I really like the minty colored leaves and just kind of their shape, and I like the really light white veins. These are going to be really pretty in any future terrariums that I have, but right now they're just kind of sitting in the grow out box and kind of letting them acclimate. This last freebie plant, I'm not even going to try and pronounce a Latin name, but I'll put it in the description. But this one is called Peacock Spike Moss, and it gets this really pretty like kind of sheen to it in certain lighting where it's almost like fluorescent, like green blue. It's really pretty. Here's a picture of some of it that I have growing in a jar, and you can see it just looks absolutely beautiful. Here is the final plant. This is the one I was actually trying to purchase and get, and this is actually true Pothos. So this is Pothos barbarianus, and it's of the true Pothos species, unlike what we call Pothos nowadays. It's absolutely tiny though. Alright, now that I gave you a brief introduction, let's skip ahead 4 months and see where they're at now. Looking at the bin, if you do notice those little labels, she also sent every plant with one of those labels, which was just a really kind and awesome thing to do. Again, we need more people like her in the plant community. All of the plants survived the last 4 months, and they've actually pretty much thrived, all but the Pothos, and I think that's because I don't have it growing upwards, so it's continuously making small leaves. And actually, I think a lot of these need to like grow vertically in order to really start to produce bigger leaves and much healthier leaves. Because I've had them in here so long, some of them are looking a little pale, but I can fix that pretty soon. I did add a creeping fig in here just so I could grow it out because I basically killed the mother plant. So now that I got these at like a decent length, I could probably put these in a terrarium somewhere and make them look very pretty. However, like I've been talking about recently, I really want to try and get some more plants out to you guys at really affordable prices, so I'm going to try and propagate all of these. Maybe it's just because there's not that many on the market, but a lot of these plants go for like $25 to $40, $50 for a really small cutting, which I know I can beat by a heck of a lot. So now I'm just going to kind of cut them all up and propagate them. To kind of get this started, I did pick up a few small clear bins, and I'm just going to fill it with some sphagnum moss. I've made videos in the past about kind of how wet I make that, so if you're curious about that, definitely look for that video because it has an exact weight like recipe, so you can repeat exactly what I'm doing here. I'm going to start with the Ficus villosa, and I'm going to cut it up into like 2 node sections just to kind of make sure they survive. I've never propagated these before, so I don't want to do like 1 node cuttings because I feel like that might be a little more risky. And at least with 2, there's like 2 rooting points and 2 potential spots that new growth would come from. This is probably going to take many months in order for me to get these actually saleable to you guys, just because I want to produce a large amount. That way many people can get a hold of them, and it would just be better off like with keeping supply up. So look forward to these maybe in about a year, but by then I should have a bunch of cheap ones available. I just think this plant is so cool with the little hairy leaves. Next up, I'm going to be chopping up the Cissus amazonica. This one again, I'm going to try and keep it to like a few nodes per cutting just to kind of help with the success. But honestly, I'm a little nervous about this one because it hasn't really been doing that great. I don't know if it needs a little more nutrients being in that propagation box, or if they really just can't handle this like 90 to 100% humidity, because I've noticed some of the new growth kind of rots off. But we'll see, and I'll keep a much better eye on it. The third one I'm going to end up doing is the Solanum Ecuador. There's actually a lot in this box. It really spread quickly, so this will probably be like first to be sellable actually, just because of how quick it goes. And if I chop it up a lot, I'm sure I can get a ton of cuttings going. These ones look a little pale and sickly in certain sections, and they look fantastic in others. I kind of wonder if the prop box is a little bit too much humidity for them, or they're just also getting a little hungry for nutrients just because they've been kind of sitting on moss for about 4 months. So I'm going to definitely try and like foliar feed these guys and add some really weak fertilizer to the prop box in hopes that it kind of rejuvenates them and gives them the strength they need. This again is the true Pothos, and that is Pothos barbarianus. We like to call the traditional like jade Pothos, but actually it's not Pothos. How many times can I say Pothos in this video? I don't know. But anyways, this one is the actual true Pothos species, and it's just ridiculously tiny. You can see kind of the initial cutting here. It has the really big leaves, and then mine, the growth that's come out of it, have been really small. I think it needs a lot more nutrients, and I do think it needs to grow vertically in order to get a lot more like bigger leaves. A lot of times plants that grow up into trees and stuff, they start to get bigger as they grow like upwards. As they kind of anchor into the wall, it triggers them to make bigger leaves, but this one's just been kind of like laying and crawling, so I think that's why they're pretty small. Again, I'm going to try and feed this some extra nutrients and really kind of give it a good place to thrive. The one really nice thing about this plant being absolutely microscopic is I can make a very small, I guess, moss pole. I'm just going to use like a 6-inch piece of wood and then wrap some sphagnum moss to it with some fishing line. I did end up taking 3 cuttings total from the new growth, and I left the old growth back in the old prop box. Hopefully that'll spit out some new growth as well. I did use some fishing line to kind of lightly push the Pothos against this so that way it can root really well into it. And then I'm going to kind of prop it upwards, again vertically, because I want this to root in and grow vertical in hopes that I can kind of trigger some bigger leaf growth. And I'm just going to kind of put a big glass dome over it to increase the humidity, because I have heard that they don't do well in like kind of dry areas. You really need high humidity for this species. Here's the true Pothos, kind of where I'm going to be keeping it, just on one of the plant shelves, and it just really cracks me up how absolutely small this plant is. But again, I really love small plants because you can fit a lot more in a small space and really have a big collection. Well guys, that pretty much sums up our video. I hope you guys like seeing some kind of interesting new terrarium plants. Maybe you've already seen some of them, but that was kind of the first time for me, and I really enjoyed the little hairy one and the Pothos one. Well, as always guys, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.